They call me an old prosy. What do your kids think of you? You're an old lady and you're doing this because I am the oldest in the UK. And I'm very proud to be a dominatrix. I've dated since I've been doing what I do. All they want to talk about is what I do. I had this call once and he said, hello, is that Sherry? I said, I beg your pardon, Sherry? No, it's Mistress Sophia. And he said, sorry, Mistress Sophia, this is domestic and general. The first thing he did, he took me out for dinner and he looked like James Bond. He knocked on the door and he was just, So we went out for dinner, came back, and then he asked to get changed. So he went upstairs and I said to Amy, I'll come down in a maid's outfit, get ready. Well, he didn't. He came down in a little tiny pair of leather shorts and a collar, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. And Amy was saying something to me, miming something. I was saying, what?
What are you on about?
And suddenly realised she was saying, he's got a semi.
Viewer discretion is advised. Plus 18 content is mentioned in areas within this podcast. Just to let you guys know. So let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Hushed, everyone. Today, I am so excited for this interview. I have the amazing Mistress Sophia with me, otherwise known as Sherry. And just give everyone a little intro, Sherry.
Well, it's very nice to be here. I'm flattered that you asked. Yes, I'm for my work persona, I'm called Mistress Sophia, although I'm Sherry to my friends and family. And I'm a dominatrix, and I'm very proud to be a dominatrix.
Look how great. Honestly, you look amazing. You look amazing. Just give everyone a little insight to how you started and how it all came about.
Okay, well, I suppose it was about 12 years ago. It was after my divorce. Once I picked myself off the floor and the sofa, which I took to for about 3 months, and I went back to work. I was only working part-time, and I realised that my ex had left a lot of debt behind and that I needed to make more money. And one particular evening, I was flicking through the channels and I came across this documentary about phone chat girls. And it was hilarious and I loved it. And I thought, I could do that. So the first thing I did was I talked to my kids and said, how do you feel if I did this? My youngest son said, Mum, I've only got to say the word sex and you go bright red. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to cross that bridge when I come to it. So I managed to get in touch with one of the girls that was on the documentary, Jenny, and she answered me. And we became firm friends, and we have been ever since. That was too many years ago.
I love that, though.
But she helped me a lot, and I managed to find a company that accepted me, and I started doing this phone chat stuff. Some of it I enjoyed, some of it is gross because
like most things.
Yeah, some think they can talk to you like you're a piece of. But what I did notice was about 90% of callers wanted some sort of domination. And also that some of the calls were just hilarious. So, and I used to go downstairs. I always worked upstairs. I didn't want my kids to hear. And I used to go downstairs. And
how many kids do you have?
I've got 3. There were only 2 at home.
Okay.
My third is living with his partner and kids. Anyway, so I'd go downstairs and I'd be saying, oh my God, this call, blah, 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 blah. And Amy and her friend would be really laughing. And so she would say, you need to be writing this down. It's so funny. So I started doing a blog. And then she said one day, Mum, you're doing it for peanuts on the phone. Why don't you do it for real? Because I said, as I got into it, I was getting more and more dominant and realising that I wasn't having to put an act on. And so when she said that, I kind of thought about it. But in the phone calls, they would say that we would be listened into, sort of monitored.
Yeah, because it's for a company, isn't it?
Yeah. So not every call, but every so often they would. And I knew it was true because I remember one of the directors phoning me the following morning when I'd done a late night and saying, well, that was a nutcase you were talking to. And I thought,
like, how do you
so
even
they
know?
really do. They really do monitor.
Earwig.
And the rule was you weren't allowed to give out any information. You weren't allowed to accept any information. But as long as I was heard to be saying that, I would always say when they'd say, can I book a session with you? I'd say, well, unfortunately, I can't give you any information and I can't take any information. And a lot of them would just say, that's a shame. But so many would say, well, I'm going to tell you anyway. And they'd say their number or their email.
And then you're just making little
scribbling
notes. Quite right.
And that's how it started. I started then emailing them or texting them. And suddenly I realised I couldn't do both because I was getting too busy. I started doing it in my lounge. And Amy had been to, she'd done a beauty course, so she had one of these beds.
The little, sorry, I'm knocking the mic, the bed things, the massage beds.
So I used to drag that out, stick it up. I put some chains on it and that sort of thing. And the very first one I did, well, I did a guy that was a sissy.
So what's that?
And that means that they like to dress up in a maid's outfit.
It's a sissification.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he came down from London and he actually stayed the weekend. Oh my God, and for next to nothing. But this was in the early days. And I think, bloody hell. Plus, I let him use my spare bedroom.
I know, you could be making bags now.
No, they get put in a cage overnight. Never mind a bloody spare bedroom. Good God, he must have thought his luck was in. And the first thing he did, he took me out for dinner as Mike. That's not his real name, obviously, but and he looked like James Bond. He knocked on the door and he was just, So we went out for dinner, came back, and then he asked to get changed. So he went upstairs and I said to Amy, he'll come down in. I didn't have any maid outfits.
Okay, so he brought his own.
Not at this time.
Did he bring his own?
He brought all his own stuff. And I said, he'll come down in a maid's outfit. This is going to be, get ready. Well, he didn't. He came down in a little tiny pair of leather shorts and a collar. And I couldn't take my eyes off him. And
were you shocked the first time you seen it? Yeah.
I was absolutely shocked. And Amy was going, Ma'am. And I said, oh, yeah, well... And she took over and she said, go and get the washing out of the machine and stick it on the clothes
dryer
horse.
thing.
Yeah, because my dryer had packed up at the time. And so he was hanging this washing up and Amy was saying something to me, miming something. I was saying, what?
What are you on about?
And suddenly realised she was saying, he's got a semi. And I thought, semi-detached? What's she on about?
You're trying to get the lingo.
And then I looked and I thought, oh, Lord. Anyway, and then he came over and he said, could I go and get changed again? It was like a bloody fashion show.
What he was doing? Was he just getting changed into loads of different things for loads of different reasons?
Well, I don't know why he got changed into... Because to me, he was just a sissy, but he came down like a male stripper to start with. And then he went back up and he came down in these bright red baby dolls. And he had a lovely physique. And he came up to me with a lipstick and he said, would you put my lipstick on, please, mistress? So I put this lipstick on, bearing in mind this was my very first time. And then he got down on his knees and started kissing my feet.
Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Or were you like, what is going on?
I didn't know what foot worship was. I didn't know anything.
You're still really new. You literally have no idea.
And I looked at Amy and she's going, oh, God, what's he doing? And anyway, and then he said, can I start cleaning? Well, this was about midnight.
He's still going.
Oh, you get on with it. I'm going to bed. So Amy and I went to bed.
Yeah.
And when we came down in the morning, he then did come down dressed as a maid. But my kitchen, oh my God, I've never seen it so clean.
So clean.
I have never, mind you, it took us 6 months to find everything because he had OCD, so everything was put away.
And he's rearranged everything in your cupboards.
Yeah. But when he'd gone and he paid me, I said to Amy, I want to be this. This is what I want for my life.
Did you really enjoy it?
Oh, my God, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
So it's like you found your little niche almost.
Yeah. I loved the fact that he wanted to worship. He was on his knees all the time. He was, if he did anything I didn't like, and I'd say, "What are you doing?" "I'm so sorry, forgive me." I mean, you know.
And you've never had that before, have you?
No. Oh my God, my husband was a bloody flipping
You've been
bully.
married. You've been married 3 times, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, so that was kind of the start of it. And then I sort of progressed. I got these chains and I brought this bed down. I had to do it in the lounge because I didn't have a playroom then. And so it started to get awkward, and I got more stuff, so I had to drag it all out the cupboard. And also, if Amy was at work and I had a session, she came home, she would go upstairs to be out of the way, so it wasn't convenient really. The next one I had, he came in, he brought me a present.
Oh, lovely.
And it was a cane.
Oh.
And he said, "I'd love you to cane me with it, Mistress." And I thought, bloody hell.
And you've never, again, this has never done it before.
Absolutely never. No play in the bedroom like that, nothing. So he got himself all ready, and I just marched up and down, swishing this cane about, thinking that would be enough to appease him and he wouldn't keep on about it. But he did keep on about it. So in the end, I said, "Okay, let's do it. Bend over." So I got him to bend over the bench. And I started caning, and it got a bit harder.
You're doing it with some force?
Not to start with, no, because I was frightened to death. I was going to hurt him.
He's going to leave and need to go to the hospital.
And anyway, do you know how I did it without panicking? I imagined it was my ex-husband.
Just visualisation.
And because I was imagining that, it got harder.
So you got into stealth
and harder.
mode.
And I caned him everywhere, his back, down his legs, everywhere. He was just welts everywhere. And afterwards, he came to me for years till he moved away. He loved it. So
why do you think, see your clientele, I'm guessing you've built up a really good clientele over the years.
Yeah, I don't, to be honest, I don't call them clients.
What do you call them?
Subs or slaves or sissies.
So see, when it comes to the majority of your subs, right, or your slaves, what's the most common thing that they come for? Because there's such a variety of things that they can come for, can't they?
Do you know what? To be honest, I couldn't put my finger on that because everything is popular. For example, I do a lot of role play because I always wanted to be an actress, and I love role play, and I make a very good headmistress.
No, I can imagine. I believe you.
And so I'll get some that come that they want to reenact their school days. So it's usually older people that want to come and do the schoolroom thing because they were caned at school. Whereas the younger ones, they want to be on the whipping bench, you know, in bondage because they've never been caned at school. So I've got a 1960s school desk with the old inkwell and everything. And and I've got a mortar and gown. So I'll be the headmistress. And I do the caning. Then on the other side, I've got the cage and the bench, and I'll wear leather and PVC and knee-high boots and whatever, you know, it takes for that. And then I've got my sissies that come and just want to do my housework.
So for people that don't know, is it sissification?
Sissification, yeah. So they'll come and they like me to dress them in. I mean, I've got about 15 different maid outfits, or every colour you can think of. Is it a full spectrum
of stuff, Sherry? Like maids. What else do they dress up in?
Well, all the underwear, basques, stockings, tights if they're into tights, shoes, you name it. I've got it.
For everything in there.
Yeah. Yeah, more or less.
I think what people don't realise either is that it's all safe practice.
Everything is safe. I give safe words unless they're regulars and they know me and they trust me. But if they're first timers, then I will always say, "Would you like a safe word?" Everything I do is consensual. So even if I'm caning somebody to the point where he's crying, It's consensual.
It's because he wants it.
And I get a lot of masochists, and they enjoy the pain.
What's that?
A masochist is the opposite of a sadist. I'm a sadist in the fact that I enjoy giving pain.
Okay.
A masochist enjoys taking pain.
Okay.
And if you do it for long enough, they'll go into their own headspace. So it's actually pain is so close to pleasure, and they then start. It's pleasurable.
Yeah. It's mad though, isn't it? Because I'm guessing from the spectrum of your slaves or your subs, what are their jobs? Why do they come to you? Why do you think they come to you at least?
Well, everybody has their own agenda as to why they come. Some, to start with, let's say it's all over the spectrum. I've got a high court judge. I've got a dustman. So it's literally
from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's one end of like chalk and
surgeons, solicitors, you name it, they'll come. And they walk in, hunched shoulders, kind of like the world, everything's on, you know. And by the time they leave, they're smiling, standing up straight, because they've come in and passed everything over to me. And that's how they like it to be.
It's almost like their release mechanism almost.
Yeah, it's a lot say it's their therapy.
Yeah.
And I once said that when I was on first dates, and I said a lot think it's therapy. Oh, and I got slated online. Think she's a therapist. Well, I don't mean I'm a trained therapist.
No, not at
This is
all.
a different sort of therapy. This is what they need.
BDSM is like a full-blown lifestyle. We were talking about it earlier, weren't we?
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, if you've got a kink, like if you want to cross-dress, if you enjoy punishment, CBT, whatever you're into, you can't walk away from it. It will be with you for your life. So some, they'll cross-dress at home, and then they meet a partner and they move in with them, and they know, you know your own partner. They know whether their partner's going to accept their kink. Or not, yeah. So what a lot of them do, they've got thousands of pounds of clothes, they'll burn them. I'm not doing this anymore. And then they end up on antidepressants because it goes against the grain. It's
trying to
in
conceal
them.
something that they need to express.
Yeah. And so I've got some that come to me because they want to express their inner feeling. And they know they're doing it in a way that it's discreet. It's with me. And that gets them through to the next month. They can lead their life.
I guess you can kind of say that, for me, it doesn't shock me when you say it's like high court judges and stuff, because a lot of them practice they're kind of in control, aren't they? If you think of a high court judge,
all the time.
They're constantly in control.
And they want somebody who's going to take that from them.
So it's almost like it's literally a release.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one that he loves to wear a pink frilly dress with lots of petticoats and suck his thumb and
literally just reenact. And that's their release. And we were talking earlier, weren't we, about how it's classed as sex work, and this is something that really frustrates you.
Very much so, because unfortunately we are in a grey area, so we are classed as sex workers, and to the vanilla population, a sex worker has sex. Well, we don't have sex.
No intercourse at all.
No intercourse at all. They do not touch me apart from my feet. And I do like a bit of foot worship. I like a bit of foot massage. So that's fine. But anything else, absolutely not. And I don't touch them in a sexual way either. So they'll get no sexual gratification from me. If they want to have a happy ending, that's up to them. They do it themselves.
Yeah.
I do not.
Some people really can't understand it. For me, I guess I find it a really easy concept. I wouldn't really see it as sex work if you're not engaging in any sexual activity. But I think some people find it really hard to understand.
But the thing is as well, I suppose you have to think that with most men, everything has some sort of sexual connotation. So, you know, but a lot of my sissies, they're in chastity anyway. So, you know, if they got aroused, it would be bloody painful.
Yeah. Oh my God, would it?
Absolutely, because you imagine if you've got a little case round and suddenly you're growing, that's going to hurt.
But some of them want that.
Especially if it's metal.
Ooh. Has there been a point, like, see, as you were starting to do it, was there any situations that made you feel uncomfortable? Was there any times where you sat down with your daughter and you were like, do you know what? I can't do this? Or is it almost like you've just flourished into it? Because for me, I just think you're glowing.
I've never felt threatened or anything like that. Whereas I think for escorts, there is always that kind of fear because you don't know
What way it's going to go.
what the people are going to be like. But with me, everyone that comes through my door, they're terrified of me. I mean, they're submissive.
It's what they come for, basically.
Exactly. So I've never felt intimidated.
You've never felt uncomfortable?
No, they're the ones. I mean, I had a guy once that came all the way from Cornwall, and he came for a caning. And he came in, he was absolutely shaking. And I think he'd been there for about 10 minutes, hadn't even got him on the whipping bench. And he said, I've got to go. And I said, go where? He said, I've got to leave. And I said, but we haven't done anything. He said, I'm terrified.
You put the fear of death in him before you even got your stuff
You've
back.
driven for nearly 4 hours. He said, I know, I'm really sorry. And he left. And he did actually come back about a month later, and we did go through with it. But
So what's it like? How would you describe a normal working day for you?
a normal working day, I get up, I feed the dog, have some toast, and then I look at my book. I might not have any. I don't think any dom is a millionaire. I don't think any dom is particularly well off. I keep the wheels ticking. I pay my bills.
So would you say then you don't really do it for financial gain anymore? At the start you did because you had to make ends meet, but now you actually do it because you genuinely love it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I found my niche, and I found it's changed me as a person, and my children will say that as well. I'm more confident. I don't take any bullshit from anybody.
Whereas before
I
you
was
would
like
have.
a shrinking violet. I mean, if there was a queue and somebody pushed in, it was, that's fine.
Now you're like,
fuck off back.
I love it.
So it's changed me for the better in every way, but also it's brought out my sadistic streak, which I can't kind of walk away from.
You never knew you had it really until
I didn't.
it started.
No, I didn't. I wish I'd known it when I was married to my last
In
husband.
hindsight, it's a
because I'll
beautiful
tell
thing.
you what, I'd have wiped the bloody floor with him. But hey ho, that's another story. So yeah, I do it because I love it, but also obviously it pays the bills. But aren't I lucky that I do something that I love with a passion, and it helps
Not
me
a lot
live.
of people get to say that they love their job. Do you know what I mean? You're in a very great position.
Yeah. And I can honestly say, if I won the lottery, I would still do what I do.
See, I love that. I can tell. I can tell. But what would you... Have you ever had really bad judgment? Because I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I have. Not by any of my friends or neighbours or family, but online. Yeah.
What do people say?
Well, they say all sorts. I mean, it's just nasty things. They call me an old prosy.
They do not.
Oh my
do you know
God,
what?
yeah.
Nothing actually shocks me these days.
I mean, there's a couple of things. I wouldn't even want to put it into words what they've said because it was just so disgusting. But people, when I get derogatory remarks, it's usually about my age and the fact, what do your kids think of you? You're an old lady and you're doing this because I am the oldest in the UK in my 70s.
You're the oldest dominatrix in the UK, aren't you?
Yeah.
You look great, lovely.
And do you know what? That's one of the reasons I'm so popular, because subs like to come to a mature...
It's almost a fetish in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. And also the fact that I know what I'm doing and I am the best. And I teach now. I teach DOMs. They have to meet my criteria because I don't charge them.
So what's your criteria?
My criteria is they've got to be of a certain age, middle-aged and above. They've got to have gone through life experiences similar to mine
So
that
not like
were
an
pleasant.
18-year-old can't come knocking on your door like, I want to be a dom.
Do you know why not? Because I've got a lot of followers on my social media, and they just want a leg up. And,
Yeah.
you know, make your own way in this world like we all had to do.
Yeah, of course.
But for people that are older and that have gone through not a very good time and they've decided they want to
Get
do
into the lifestyle.
something like this, then I'm happy to train. I do have a waiting list, so don't jump on the bandwagon. And
no, but you're almost, it's great because you're doing your job and you're enjoying it and you're loving it, but then you're also giving people the opportunity to learn, and
Exactly.
It's educating because...
Yeah. Because when I started, I wish I'd had somebody to mentor me, because the first caning I did, I could have really damaged him. I didn't know what I was doing.
It's not just fun and games. It's a serious thing,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
And if you're caning somebody, you can't do wraparounds because, you know, you've got the skin is thin on the hips.
Is this the skin like here at the side of you?
Yeah, and you can do some damage. You've got to be careful of the coccyx. You've got to be careful of the kidney area. So, you know, it's not just a case of pick up a cane and whack away.
Put latex on, put your collars on, do all this, pick up a cane.
Exactly. And also other things like sounding and, you know, all sorts of tricks of the trade. You have to make sure you're doing it safely. And also hygiene is such a big part. Like Milton everything. Like, you know, everything is sterilised. It's a big important
It's almost
part.
like an art.
Yeah, it is. And play safely. You have to play safely. So
I just think there's when it comes to kinks and fetishes and BDSM and all of that, I just think there's like a common, like we both call it the vanilla population, but it goes back years.
Oh, it does indeed. Yeah.
Like it's been, people have been doing this for years and years and years.
I don't think they called it BDSM or dominatrix, but when it started, it was just something like even Victorian times or before. You'll see pictures of the women with whips and things like that.
It's so common.
And it was something people did and enjoyed, but didn't know what to call it.
Yeah. And now I think there's a lot of people that will still probably just think, a lot of people link it to trauma. I personally don't. I don't think it's got anything to do with trauma.
No.
I think if you've got a kink, you've got a kink.
I mean, you know, there's things like puppy play. So I can have a guy who wants to be a puppy. I've got all the gear, the masks, the paws. I put a collar and a lead, take him for a walk.
Is there anything that
tie him up
someone's
in the
asked
park.
you? You just leave him. Tie him up.
Well,
and
I
leave
did.
him.
Yeah, I've left one there for an hour or so. It was when school was in, so I knew there would be no
one around.
You know, yeah.
You just literally left him and were like,
I
I'm
just
come
left
back.
him and said, I'll see you later, yeah.
Is there anything that anyone's asked you to do, like a request, like one of your slaves, and you've thought, I can't do that? Or do you love it all?
I don't do strap-on play. I don't do... I used to, but I just didn't like it. And I do what I enjoy now.
Of course.
So... I'll steer them in different directions if that's what they want. I know a couple of DOMs that would do it, but I don't. And water sports, I don't do either. I certainly don't do scat.
What are all these terms? Because I've got no idea.
Well, scat is actually, poo play.
Oh, right, okay. I'm with you. Same with water sports.
And water sports, what I do there, they'll drink my pee out of a dog bowl, but I don't do it from source. So there's no... I know what you mean.
It's not like you're standing peeing over them.
No. Now, proper water sports is that you squat over them and you pee on them, but it's supposed to be one of the most humiliating things for the sub. But to my mind, I'm sorry, but it's the most humiliating thing for me if I was to do it. So I don't.
So you don't feel comfortable doing it? So
Absolutely
you're like, no
not.
chance?
No. Same with face sitting. I don't do that either. What the hell?
It's all literally within limits. It's all safe practice. And I guess you build relationships with some of them. I'm guessing you've got some great relationships with some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a few that, especially during lockdown, that would ring me up and I'd have a chat with them because they were really having a bad time because they couldn't do anything about their kink because they were them and their wives were they were both at home, and so they were getting very frustrated about the fact that they couldn't cross dress or they couldn't have a good hiding or whatever is their thing.
I remember I said this to you earlier. I was watching the This Morning interview that you done, and I really didn't like it. I told you I watched it and I felt uncomfortable, not because of you. I really didn't like how Holly and Philip were interviewing you. I feel like it was very judgy.
Yeah, she kind of intimated that isn't it emotionally cheating, and I don't
for
see
some
it
of the men that are married. For some of the men that are married,
because do you not think they could be doing something worse? They could be going to an escort and they're married. I don't touch them sexually. But they're relieving. Let me tell you a story, and I wish I'd had the time to explain this, because I had this sub that came to me for about 3.5 years, and I got to know quite a bit about him. He'd been married for 30 years. He'd suffered with mental health during that time, and had been on different pills, and they nearly had a breakdown of their marriage a couple of times because he'd been in such a state, and then he suddenly started coming to me, and he came to me for about 3.5 years, and suddenly after one of the lockdowns I got this, and I will never get in touch with one of my subs if I know that he's apart from my lifestyle, but that's different, that's because I would never get in touch with one first because I don't want to cause any exactly. So anyway, I got this email, and it was from his wife. And she'd been going through some stuff, and she'd come across a little notebook, and for 3.5 years, he'd kept notes on every one of his sessions.
Okay, and she found it.
And she found it. And what she said to me was, everything is clear to me now because we've had quite a traumatic marriage, but for the last 3.5 years I can honestly say it was the happiest time we've had, and now I understand why. And I just
that made you happy, obviously.
Yeah. Apart from at the end, she said, and I feel you would really like to know that I lost him to COVID. So it was kind of a bittersweet,
But she's obviously made sense of it in her mind.
Yeah, and then at the end she said,
dots.
just thank you so much. So,
people think that you're doing bad things.
I know. And I do judicials as well. So a judicial is a real-time punishment. So it can be, when they come to me for a judicial, I have to sit them down and I need to know what they're being punished for. And if it's something I think it's worthy of punishment, I'll do it. But if not, like I did have one that wanted to be caned because he wanted to be a woman. And he was 72. And he was so pretty, beautiful, grey, curly hair. And
so it's almost like they've got things that eat them up inside, and they need to learn. They need you to almost basically just release it.
Yeah, and he wanted to be punished because of the feeling he had. Now, he had grown-up children. He had a wife he loved more than anything. And what I couldn't understand was his doctor had put him on hormones. Anyway, by the time we'd finished, he stopped taking the hormones. I didn't cane him, but we spent the hour just talking. And since then, he comes to me and I dress him up, not to look ridiculous. I dress him in nice clothes that he looks good in.
That actually make him feel great.
I do his makeup, his hair, and then we sit and we have tea and we have a girly time.
And then that's him just dealing with it.
Yeah.
And then that's his release.
And then he can go home and it'll get him through to the next time, because he's never, ever going to do anything about a change.
He's never going to transition.
No, he's not.
Because he's 72,
Because he's 72 and he desperately loves his wife still. And he knows she wouldn't accept it. So that's the way we do it. But like there's others. I've got one that he's an alcoholic. And
is that why he's punishing himself?
yeah. So I did punish him. And he's been coming to me now for nearly a year. He'd lost his wife, his children. He lives in a flat on his own. He hasn't had a drink now since March, April. He now has his children at weekends. And he has to check in with me twice a week by text to tell me. It was every day. We're now down to twice a week. I don't charge him for that. And he comes to me like for things like when he was going on holiday, I made him come to me for a judicial session so that he had the marks to remind him that he was going on a golfing holiday, which he'd been doing for 15 years and knew that he was likely to drink, and he didn't. And
so
he even brought me a bottle of wine back. So, yeah, we've talked about whether he will ever be able to have the odd pint in the pub. I don't think he will.
Because you think it'll just tip him from...
Yeah, I do.
See, I just think it's amazing how you just get loads of different walks of life.
I've got a gambler who lives in a caravan because he's lost everything. But now, the last time he gambled, he spent £500, so I gave him 500 strokes of the cane.
I don't even want to picture that.
So he's not gambling at the moment.
So do you think you'll always do it, Sherry? Do you think you'll do it until you physically can?
I plan to do it until I'm 80, because number one, what will I do if I retire? And number two, that's when my mortgage is paid off.
There you go.
But it's simply because I don't feel I want to retire. I'm healthy. I give a bloody good whack with a cane.
I believe you.
And as long as I can still do that and give them value for money, because at the end of the day, they are paying for the session. So when I say, it's a bit like topping from the bottom, because whenever that somebody gets in touch with me for the first time, I do have to say, what are your kinks? Because it happened once, and it was my fault, although nothing is ever my fault, but it was my fault.
I love that.
This sub had made an appointment, and in he came, and I hadn't really checked my book. I got him to strip off and get on the bench. I whipped him. I did all sorts, you name it. He got it. And when he went to leave, he stood at the door and he said, "Thank you, Mistress. I've never had any of that before." And off he went, and I thought, why the hell didn't he tell me that he was a newbie? I wouldn't have gone quite so
rough.
So I looked in my book, and it's in my phone, and he texted, and it had said, "Dear Mistress, could I please book half an hour to worship your beautiful feet?"
That's all he wanted.
That's all he wanted.
And you ended up getting him.
And I hadn't even taken my boots off because I had no idea. So I'm much more careful now.
When someone comes to you, does someone come to you just through social media?
Yeah. Oh, I get a lot from my Twitter, Instagram, and of course my website.
If you want to let the people know,
MistressSophia.co.uk.
There we go.
Sophia with an F.
She's not going to be gentle on you. She's not going to be gentle on you.
And at the same time, buy my book.
Just explain what your book's about.
Well, this one is, I started writing it. It took me 3 years, and it's not a huge book, but I started writing it because it's called From the Missus to Dominatrix. And it was cathartic because I'd gone through a really bad breakup. So
you're almost at breaking point, weren't you?
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, really, really awful. So somebody suggested well, it was actually Amy, my daughter, again. And so I started it, and I wrote it as I progressed with my career. And so it's about how I transitioned from a weak...
It's almost like you blossoming.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful flower.
Yeah. And I was surprised that up to date I've sold over 14,000 now.
Well done.
And,
I can't wait to read it.
And I thought Oh gosh, imagine if I sold 100 or 200. That would be great.
And now it's flying off the shelves.
So now it's you can get it in Waterstone. Well, you can get it all over the world now.
Go on,
but
Sherry.
you can also get it on Amazon and PayHip.
I'm definitely going to read it.
So
I was going to ask you as well, how do you balance? What's your dating life like? Because I can imagine if you're dating, it's quite an intimidating job for a man, isn't it? So what's the dating life like?
I don't really date now. I mean, I'm nearly 72, and you know what? I can't be bothered.
Don't blame you.
I have done, of course, when I want to. If I want to, I will. But at the moment, I've got no inclination to.
You're really content.
Date. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you had any situations where you have started seeing someone and then it's just not worked out? And is it mainly because of the job?
No, I haven't actually. I mean, I've dated since I've been doing what I do, but the only thing I do find is all they want to talk about is what I do.
Yeah,
and that can get a bit tedious.
There's more to life than that, isn't it?
Yeah. So
you need to find common interests, have fun,
yeah,
do stuff, and they're too busy.
Because they're intrigued, so they just keep asking questions.
So it's just easier just to be on your own.
And I think, if I do an online session, you're asking me questions that I get paid for online, so it's kind of it just puts me off a bit.
No, I don't blame you. There's more to life.
I mean, I'm not just a dom. I'm a
You're
woman
a
as well. Yeah, exactly.
You're loads of different things.
Yeah.
You're a human being. Is it hard separating the two? Do you struggle with it at all?
No, I don't really. Although I must say, sometimes if I'm on the phone or talking to somebody and it's not in the scene, my daughter will say, "Mum, don't talk like that. You're not talking to a sub." And I say, "Well, what am I doing?" "Well, you're very dominant." I said, "Am I? Okay."
That's just your alter ego, but now it's turned into
I'll
you.
tell you what happened once, because I don't have a home phone. I just have my phone, and I don't chat with people on the phone. I very rarely get calls except for about work. And I had this call once, and he said, "Hello, is that Sherry?" And I said, "I beg your pardon, Sherry? No, it's Mistress Sophia." And he said, "Oh, sorry, Mistress Sophia, this is domestic and general." About your insurance.
You're like, what is going on?
And I could have gone through the floor. I was so embarrassed.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And he kept calling me Mistress Sophia after that.
And he's like, wait, Mistress
Yeah,
Sophia?
I know.
Has there been any strange requests or anything that's made you kind of be like, oh, what is going on here?
Well, the strangest I've ever had was somebody who, when he turned up, he brought a paddling pool with him, which we filled with water, and he had a fetish for mermaid tails, mermaids, and he brought about 10 mermaid tails that you squiggle yourself into, and he'd choose one, and then he got into it and got in the paddling pool and started flapping his mermaid tail around, and I had a crop in my hand, and I had to walk around telling him what a naughty mermaid he was and whacking his mermaid tail with my crop. So how now? What do you think the neighbours would make of that?
Was that a one-time thing, or is it?
No. He's been about 3 times. He doesn't come that often, but occasionally, when he gets a mermaid fetish come across him, then he'll turn up with his mermaid tails.
But this is the thing: everyone has a kink.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I'm saying that, but I think I'm sometimes pretty boring when I hear some stories.
Let me tell you this. I had this guy once that he had such a foot fetish and he was married, and this is very, very unusual, but his wife had a foot fetish as well.
Some women do.
So anyway, he went out one night and he came back, and his wife was sitting on the sofa with her best friend, and she was massaging her feet. And they had a huge falling out, and after that, he it went downhill and
Why did they
downhill.
fall out?
And then
Do you
he
know?
said because to him it was being unfaithful. That's how bad
I've
his
got
foot fetish
ya.
was. And then he also found some gloves pushed down the side of the sofa, and he said to me, I think she'd been putting the glove on and tickling her friend's feet. I said, but why are
And
you...
he's seen that as infidelity.
And they ended up getting divorced because of it.
Loads of men have a foot fetish. What do you think it is?
Well, there are different reasons, but I watched a documentary once by this professor, and he said that, it was about foot fetish, and he said that there's channels in your brain, and the sexual channel is very close to the foot channel.
Is that the reason why?
And no, what happens with some people is the channel crosses over. And now, I don't know how true this is, but it does make sense, because there are some people that absolutely detest feet, and there are some people that, to them, feet are the most
beautiful thing on the planet.
Yeah, and also if you look at like, I've got a very high instep.
So
if you look at a foot from sideways on, it's shaped like a woman's body.
Do you know what I think I read it, I'm not sure, but I got told, or I read it, that it was, do you know when a woman's pregnant, right? And if you think about it, fetal position, apparently that's something to do with it as well. But I think foot fetish is probably one of the most common things that I come across.
And it's unusual to find somebody with a foot fetish that isn't also submissive.
Oh,
yeah.
So they're also kind of like
yeah, definitely. But there's all sorts of different reasons. I had one guy that was his auntie came round for dinner one night. He was sitting doing his homework, and his mum was in the kitchen, and his auntie crossed her legs, and she fell asleep, and her shoe, that's another thing, hanging.
Yeah, the hanging feet. I
yeah.
know that from Shooting Glamour. That's a huge
and
thing.
Her shoe kind of just fell off at the back and was sort of hanging. And he said he couldn't take his eyes off it.
And from that moment on.
And what happened was he slid off the sofa and went along. And as he got to her, the shoe fell off. And he picked it up and he smelt it.
As you do.
Now,
to their own.
I haven't got very smelly feet, but some guys really will say, can I smell your smelly feet? And I say, I don't have smelly feet.
I had, this is the only time I'm going to talk about me, but it's so funny. I had a guy years ago that wanted to pay for my smelly socks.
Oh, yeah, I get that all the time.
Smelly as smelly can come. I don't have smelly feet.
Same.
Like, I don't have...
Do you know what I do sometimes?
What do you tell me?
If somebody wants to buy my stockings and they want them, I stick them in my daughter's trainers.
Has she got cheesy feet?
Well, she's got a couple of old pairs of trainers that I just keep for that.
And that just sits in my...
Yeah, or even my sons. I mean, if they knew that, what do you think?
No, that's what I mean. But men do have smellier feet, don't they?
Yeah. So
see, if anyone wanted to come and practice it, obviously you've got your book and you teach. But if there's anyone that's listening to this and, they do have kinks that they want to suppress, or they are interested in BDSM, what do you think the safest way to go about it is?
What, if you want to kind of experiment?
Yeah, I mean, even in couples, like how do people start introducing it? Because I can honestly probably say that a lot of people are interested in doing it, but they probably just don't know how to go about it.
I would suggest that, number one, you read my book, because it's
show
all
it to the
in
people.
here. It's all in here. But I would also suggest that you get on the internet, read.
Just absorb
BDSM, mistresses, blogs. Just read, because I just also want to touch on something very quickly, and that's findoms.
Okay, what is that?
Findom is financial domination.
Okay.
Now, it's a very real kink, so I'm not dissing it.
Is this pay pigs?
Yeah.
Okay, right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
But all I will say is, if you're a pay pig, if you're into financial domination, make sure you find somebody who is responsible, you know, at the moment there's a brat pack on Twitter, on wherever, who they're just, send me your money, send me this, send me that. They don't do anything. They just sit back and take the money. But unfortunately, because a man is ruled by his genitalia, if he's feeling horny and he sees pictures of breasts
Women
and God
or
knows
whatever,
what,
yeah.
then he will give out anything. He would give out the code to their safe in their wall while he's still
horny. Do you know
horny.
what? It's actually funny that you mention this, because I think out of all the kinks, that's probably one of the ones that I really don't understand.
No.
Like, I can't actually comprehend how someone would want to just give away money.
Yeah. I had a sub once that wanted to sign his house over to me. And I gave him a good talking to. Now, I don't know if he ever did with anybody else, but I certainly wasn't going to do it.
You weren't going to do that.
But so I always say, and sometimes I get unpopular on Twitter because I do say what I think. And what I would say is, do not give out your information to a findom or to anybody. Like, don't give your bank details. Don't give your wife's phone number.
Nothing.
Because before you know it, you're being blackmailed. And find a findom that is responsible. And that means that she's going to ask you questions like your financial situation, how much you can afford.
Rather than just, I want a new dress, give me $1,000 for a dress.
Yeah. I have just got one who we've been kind of doing the findom thing for probably about 2 years. I've got a picture of him wearing a bra. And it's almost like a game because he trusts me, and every month he likes to send me money, and I'll say, it's that time of month. If you don't send me this, that picture's going up. But if he said to me, which he has a few times, it's a tough month this, I just say, don't worry about it, forget it.
You're not that inhumane to actually force them to give you money.
And he also has a safe word. So if ever the time comes when he doesn't want to do it anymore, if he just texts me that word, it'll be finished. But some, they like to live on the edge and they want it to be real, real, real. And they get themselves into... I had a guy that came to me once asking for my help because he'd seen me put a few things on my Twitter about, because I'm anti-findom if it's not done responsibly.
Yeah, because you can literally bankrupt someone.
Exactly.
You're crippling someone's well-being almost.
He was a Scottish guy, lovely guy. He was engaged and he'd given his fiance's details to this young, whatever she was. And in 3 months, he'd given her £8,000. So I took over and I got in touch with her. Now I've got a solicitor that will step in if I need.
Got to have it on hand?
Yeah. So I sent her a message and I said, right, the next message you get will be from my solicitor. And you know what she responded? These were her exact words. Well, I've got a solicitor as well, so there.
So she's just so young.
Oh my God.
You're dealing with a young girl.
Within an hour, he got in touch with me and he says, she's deleted and blocked me from everything.
Good, you just got her off her back.
But then I've got another one that did exactly the same, and I got him out of the mess, and then, damn me, 6 weeks later he was back. I've done it again. I said, I can't keep digging you out of this.
You're chasing a tail, aren't you?
Yeah.
Never-ending tail.
Everything has to be done responsibly. It's got to be enjoyed. It's got to be enjoyed on both sides, and you have to think what you're doing.
Of course, it's not just as simple as just caning someone or doing whatever. There's people don't realise there's steps. What was that I said? It's an art.
Yeah,
because I couldn't bloody do it. If someone said cane me, I'd be like, I couldn't do it.
And then you'd call on me and I'd come and do it for you.
Mistress Sophia. Have you ever felt bad? Have you ever has anyone ever walked out your door and you thought, I was a bit pissed off the day I took it out on them a bit too much? Or have you always done it and just felt that was great?
Yeah, I've never felt bad. Why would I feel bad? I mean, they've chosen to come to me.
Of course.
So
they're paying for the service, aren't they, at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I did take one of my sissies out once. We went out for a Chinese meal. She'd always kind of dreamt about going out dressed up. So obviously I didn't dress her in a maid's outfit. In fact, I put her in my clothes because she was very slender, and made her up and put a wig on. My daughter made her up because she's done the course.
Yeah.
And then we went to this Chinese restaurant in town. I had to drag her out of the taxi. She no,
Didn't
I
wanna
can't
go
do it,
there.
can't do it. And then we went into the restaurant. Nobody batted an eyelid. She kept saying, "Are people looking at me?" Nobody was. And then she said afterwards, she said that was the best night of my life.
And I bet you that makes you feel like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course it gives you some reward, doesn't it?
Yeah. And my lifestyle, I don't think we've talked about him. He doesn't pay tribute, but he belongs to me. He wears my collar.
Because it's your lifestyle slave, isn't it?
My lifestyle slave, yeah. So he's got he's got the collar on, and it's a big, thick sort of what do you call it? Steel.
Like a leather
like a
or
steel.
Ooh.
Steel. And it's got he's got the little padlock, and I've got the key. So it's on for life. And
He's never getting out.
He's got me tattooed across just below his.
So he is literally devoted to you.
Yeah, a slave of Mistress Sophia, and that's written on the collar. And he never ever, a lifestyle slave will never ever say "I want," because that doesn't interest me. If a lifestyle slave said to me "I want," then they'd be gone.
Yeah, you would literally just bin them.
Yeah, it's what I want. So they're there to serve me.
And do you mean in every single aspect, it's all about what you want?
Yeah.
In every single way, shape or form?
Absolutely. And he's in chastity and has been for nearly coming up for 2 years in December.
So what does that mean?
That means that he has not had any relief for that 2 years.
Wow.
And he never will.
And this is what he wants?
Absolutely. And he's never been happier.
Glowing, as they say.
Yeah.
That's mad, isn't
And
it?
I used to chat to his mother on the phone. She passed away only a few weeks ago, but
Bless him.
I wanted to put her mind at rest because he's in his early 40s, 44, and she was a bit concerned because, like everybody, she thought we were having sex and he was paying me, and so before she passed, she knew that wasn't the case, and she did say to me, "He's so happy." So
I was going to quickly, lastly, touch on, if you don't mind, Sherry, about your daughter being a dom too.
yeah, she's not fully a dom. She's got another job, but there are things she like me that she doesn't enjoy, that she won't do.
So there are limits, isn't it? It's each to their own when it comes
Absolutely.
to this. Isn't it?
And one of them is she hates her feet being touched, so she doesn't do foot worship. But she is brilliant at humiliation.
I wish I could do it.
Just absolutely.
I wish I could do it.
Yeah.
I would feel
and
terrible.
she loves to have a crop in her hand and give the thing a good old whack.
And the last thing I was going to say as well is, I'm guessing because it's probably is it a big community but small? You kind of know. Do you know any other dominatrixes? Do you speak? Is everyone in contact? Have you got great friends that you've made?
On Twitter, we kind of, if somebody's not well, you'll always get messages from other doms, and of course I know quite a few because I've trained them.
Yeah, you've been in the industry for so long,
yeah,
haven't you?
So if I want a double dom session, I've always got ones that I can call on to come and double dom with me. So
it's great though. But it's all safe. Everything's
absolutely,
consentful.
yeah.
And you're living and you're thriving. And I love to see it.
And I've got an inside cage, but I've got an outside cage as well called my sin bin. So I lock them in there for the night.
And they literally sit in the sin bin.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Chained up, of course.
So they literally are confined in this tiny little cage.
Yeah. And I like to have fun as well. So I've got a fetish about masks. And I don't mean your gimp masks. I mean like the Grinch. And
do you love all that?
Oh yeah, I dress them up. I sent one down to Asda once to buy me some milk and bread, dressed as a rabbit. And
So you literally have men at your
yeah,
beck and call.
I've had somebody up on the hill across from my house with a gorilla thing on and a pink tutu dancing on the
and
hill.
they're dancing around
Because humiliation is a huge part of BDSM as well. They love to be humiliated. So, you know, what's more humiliating than being dressed as a gorilla in a tutu?
Not really, is there? That's like the icing on the cake. But I just don't understand why they would want to be humiliated. It's quite hard for you, I guess, because it's your job, you'll understand it. And
I kind of do. I do get it. I do understand that I can't actually say why. A lot of it is because it pleases me. But it's an enigma, really, the
strange,
humiliation.
isn't it?
I mean, I had a guy the other day that brought a sandwich and I had to take it outside and squash it on the floor and then spit in it and then put mud in it, and then he was in his element because he ate it.
I just confused. Listen, each to their own.
And it's the humiliation of actually doing that.
Do you know what it is for me though? It's the little details. Like, do you know what I mean? Like putting the mud in it.
Yeah. And I'm very inventive. So I
can imagine. Ignore this. I dropped my lunch. Look at the state of me. I can imagine.
At least you got lunch.
I know, don't. Look at the state of that. I don't know how I missed my mouth. It's bloody big enough. So that's what I mean. So do you also come into play and bring ideas in and get creative with it?
Yeah, I mean, I do all sorts. Like I've got a set of, you put your hands in your head. What do you call them? Stocks. So I've had somebody dressed as the Grinch in the stocks, and I take film and it goes on my Twitter. And I've had a Father Christmas on my treadmill with a huge Father Christmas head, and everything else has changed, and he's walking on the treadmill. It just, it just comes to me in this, I might wake up in the night and say, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
You've got a little idea and it sparks, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you. And make sure that you plug the book. Make sure that the people know that they can read the book.
Yeah, well, don't forget, From the Mistress to Dominatrix, and the other one is Sophia's Dilemmas.
Honestly, I think you're amazing.
I just wrote that in lockdown, so
I'm going to read them.
Yeah,
if you don't mind,
yeah,
I'd love to. But I think that's it for this episode, guys. Everyone, just applaud the amazing Mistress Sophia. You've been amazing, Sherry. Honestly, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And thanks for educating people, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the main thing, is educating people on it.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, peace out, guys.